Hello, good evening. My name is Malik Abbas Dabu. Welcome to PM Express. They constitute about 50% of Ghana's total population. In fact, it is generally accepted they are better managers of one of society's most important components, the family. But despite years of campaigns against domestic violence, women in Ghana and across the world continue to suffer abuses. They get maimed, and in some extreme cases, they are killed. Tonight, as the world marks UN Day on the eradication of violence against women, we ask the question, is the Ghanaian woman safe? If not, why? Join me and my guest, as we said, for answers to these questions. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. Tonight on PM Express, we are discussing gender violence and violence against women specifically. Not only physical violence, but sometimes verbal abuses as well. With me in the studio is Deputy Minister, Gender, Children, Women, Children, and Gender Protection, Mr. John Alexander Akon. Yeah. I also have in the studio Mrs. Esther Darko Mensah. Lady and gentlemen, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Let me start with you, Esther. In this morning, you were on Joy FM's Super Morning Show. I heard some disturbing figures that you churned out on the show. This situation, in spite of all the campaigns that have been waged over the decades, it does not appear, the figures do not appear to be going down as one would expect, are they?
For now, as I said earlier in the morning on your radio station, it's this research was done by my office, the Gender Center, almost a decade ago, in 1998. But fortunately or unfortunately, that's the main statistics most of women's rights activists have been using. And I know there's a new one coming up, but for now, we talked about the fact that, do I give the statistics?
Yes, we want to know what the situation is.
Yes. When we did it was a nationwide study on violence against women and children. And physical, we get 33%. That is, if you choose about 3 women, you get 1 person being physically abused. Psychologically, we get 27%. That's one. If you take 4 women, 1 person has been threatened. Or if you take 5 women, 1 person has been forced to have sex with a man before. With this sexual was 27%. That is 1 in 5 women has experienced sexual abuse. Traditional, 15% for circumcised women, 85% for women below the age of 15, 51% for children before age 1. That's traditional when we're talking about female genital mutilation. And then the economic was 27%. That is, if you take 4 women, you have about 1 of them who has economically been abused. That is, man refusing to let them work or man refusing to give them money. So these are some of the things that came out.
Let's break the figures down. Mm-hmm. Let me get to Mr. Akon first before we come to you, and then we break the figures down. We are looking at data that was collected or evidence that was collected 10 years ago. Is that an indication of a lack of seriousness in tackling this problem? Otherwise, we would have had series of research reports on this matter.
Well, it is, you cannot claim that it's lack of seriousness. There are other factors we should ride on. For issues bordering on discrimination and violence against women, it's a bit more social than political, though you need the political leadership to help address it. But it's a wide issue which is even implemented by those who have been to school. And that's where the difficulty lies. Traditionalists do it, people who claim to have been to school or who have educational backgrounds also do it and believe in them. So the difficulty is getting people to come to the realization that it is not the order of the day, and therefore we should go. So yes, research findings are out, and that's the reason why the president set up the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, because there were issues of resistance when it was just a woman and children. So the male gender felt that no, it is not right. So now it's the general gender. So also I will give you some few statistics. You realize even in the general gender equation, how is the proportion looking like? And you see how disproportionate the issues are, to the extent that we are not very biased if we say let's talk more of the women in that regard and what the United Nations is doing. So as a country, I think that this period should give us a good insight into what is happening. Take the statistics, don't get scared, but they are not right. But let's all combine to know how to get it eradicated and further prevent it.
It's difficult not to draw in the political leadership, because it is the political leadership that draws policy. If the political leadership considers gender-based violence as a very serious matter, political leadership certainly, as you pointed out, the president found it necessary to reconstitute the ministry. It used to be Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs. The president found it necessary to reconstitute it. That is an indication of what political leadership can do. Yes. If political leadership was proactive, we shouldn't be referring to research that was done in 1990 or 98.
No, I mean, it's a 10-year research they do, so it will come. But I'll give some few ones. But important, I'll give you two examples where you have the political leadership, but implementation without the social support is difficult. Take Trokosi and the witch camps. Everything was done, it's criminalized. But the point is that people think it is part of their social
And when you're talking about Trokosi, what are you talking about?
Child slavery.
Okay.
And where you are betrothed to the fetish priest. And a lot of jobs
to atone
of your
forefathers, things that your grandparents have done, they come to.
So it's a compensation.
Sort of
you are atone for their sins.
The
and they will be betrothed.
Does that still happen today?
Oh, drastically reduced, but it's not out. It's not out. But what I'm trying to say is that when attempts was made and condemned, which we all think is right, it did not provide a solution. It rather provided a defense and resistance. So the approach should always change. When we went to the witches camp, a whole
You're talking about Gambaga.
Gambaga and Bonyasi, which we have closed. You cannot just criminalize and say you can solve the situation, because the institution of chieftaincy believes in it, the social setting, the cultural setup, the families, the community believes in it. So the process takes a long time. If you want to do it and do it right, for them to even have the acceptance, you can solve it, get them there, but who's going to accept them? So the social, so when we started re-engineering the whole issue, the Ministry of Chieftaincy was used, the National House of Chiefs was used, the Reintegration Committee was headed by an imam who lectures at the UDS to give it that level of spiritual and then cultural clout.
Acceptance.
Yes. And you have to also make sure the community comes to accept them back. And that's the process. It could take about 1 year. And eventually you have to even pacify, get them to pacify that they are coming back to them before acceptance. So it takes a process. So political leadership, right, but a huge support is required from the social setting that we have.
How, in the figures that you have given us, which ones are the most troubling?
In fact, when we talk about violence in its types and forms, all of them are troubling. All of them, when done to somebody, causes harm, it causes pain, and it infringes on the rights of the person.
When you say violence, what does it mean?
Violence simply means causing pain or harm, one person, somebody causing pain or harm to someone without the person's consent, simply. So, and you know that nobody in their right frame of mind will come and tell you that come and beat me, rape me, insult me. So anytime it is done, then it means it's against the person's consent. And if it's against the person's consent, then we now link it to Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which we find it in our 1992 Constitution as enshrined in Chapter 5. It talks about that all people, we are all equal, regardless of our race, ethnicity, color, and all that. So one person can't get up to decide that I'm causing harm to someone by the fact that I have power over you, or I have control over you, or I'm better off than you.
But if the person enjoys it, and Honorable, you wanted to say
Well,
something?
she said without your consent. Always there should be a consent in that relationship. So if there's not consented, it is not right. But even then, as current as this 2014, there are a few statistics. And just to give you some, it says that from the Ghana Demographic and Health Survey, 14% of women aged between 15 and 19 have begun childbearing. We think it's a violation.
14%.
Yes, we think it's a violation. In fact, it is a violation.
This is the age at which, if somebody were to have carnal knowledge of a woman, that person can be charged for defilement.
Exactly. That's the reality on the ground. If you go, 11% have had live births, and 3% were pregnant at the time of the interview for 2014. The proportion of teenagers who have begun childbearing rises rapidly with age. That's from 1% at age 15 to 31. 31% at age 19. So the issue is that when you refuse somebody the right of education, it's an abuse. So all this today, if you go further, you realize that they have to truncate, terminate their schooling. And I'm sure as you go ahead, it's going to tell you that when we start schooling, we are at par. There's parity from the primary level. As you advance, then the drop-ins come in. It's mostly the girls who drop out. The moment it comes, the men are overtaking the girls, and it creates a disparity. And we need to solve that particular one.
Mr. Haku was talking about the social and cultural setting that provides fertile grounds for these abuses to occur. And we do know that we have different sociocultural backgrounds in this country. Which areas would you see tend to have the most problematic figures?
And once again, I'll say that when it comes to violence, I wouldn't say it's in the Ashanti region, in the northern region, or in Greater Accra. No. It cuts across.
But sometimes when we look at child marriages, for example, we all know the communities where these things tend to happen more frequently, so we can speak to them. Because frequently, I am a journalist, we do media reports. Consistently, a lot of them tend to happen in Muslim communities. It may be the case that the reporting is not properly done, but with what I know, it tends to happen that many of these underage marriages, sometimes forced marriages, tend to happen in Muslim communities.
Yeah.
And we have to be honest about that.
Yeah. Just now you talked about Muslim communities, but it also happens a lot in some part of the Brahafo region. Down in Kintampo areas, we are doing a project there on early and forced marriages. So you realize that you get some communities which are out there, people get to know, but there are some other places that there is there but is silent. And just as he said, it comes to the point that because of the work that we are doing, we meet all these things. As much as we are trying for the laws to be there, the laws to work, you go out there and the community itself is condoning the act. And the best way for all of us to do is continue to do the kind of sensitization and awareness creation that we talk about. For me, one thing that personally normally bothers me is, you know, when we talk about the fact that the communities are condoning it, we need the state agencies, the enforcement of the laws. Because, for example, if someone goes to abduct an underage girl to marry, and we find out, if the person is taken to the police station or wherever, the full course of the law should be done. But it goes, before you realize, families has gone to talk about it, and they just leave them. But there should be, and we find all these law settings in the Domestic Violence Act. It's there that when you commit this kind of act, you are this and this is what is supposed to be done to you. So it's about all of us, from NGOs, the government, and through its state agencies, to see the enforcement of it.
Honorable, why is the enforcement not happening?
It's happening. What we've done is that you always have to do a research and find out the causatives. I mean, what is contributing to the enforcement problem? One of which is that she spoke about it. So all the legs will work. So what we've done immediately, we also realized that when we had a department called DOFSU, all such matters were being referred to DOFSU. And though they are doing very well, they don't have offices all over the districts. Some don't have them. So what we've done is that out of the act, the DV Act you spoke about, Domestic Violence Act, we have come out with UNFPA on the domestic violence regulations. So now after the launch, the police have accepted to teach it in all their training schools so that everybody, every policeman will become an agent. So that what it means is that from the regulations, you know how to look for an evidence and you know what the act talks about and you know which way to operate so that the law will not even beat you. And then you know that the moment it moves from that level, it is in your domain. So that's the problem we are doing. But there are other things which are discussed, which is going to be on the preventive side.
Is the problem inadequacy of law?
Not at all. Not at all. The law is always there. But like you said, two things happen. One is how many of them get reported.
Yes.
Does it get to the police at all? Because all those figures you see is because they get reported or by research. That is one side. Now, when somebody gets abused, there are two options. There are two areas. The first one is the abuser, how to get in the law to arrest him. The other side is what to do to the victim so that she will not suffer damage and losses and nothing is truncated in her life. The moment it doesn't get reported, it implies support system will also not work. So they will lose out to double. And that's a big concern for us. And that's the way we want society to look at it, that we mostly look at sympathizing and trying to intercede for the person, the perpetrator of the crime, but leave it out the support system for the person who has been abused. If it's a school system, it's going to lose out. What happens to the person? So the intervention should stop so that the whole process will take place. And mostly the victims should have the support they need to progress in their lives.
Do we have the capacity? Have we demonstrated? And you can tell me, he won't do anything to you. Do we have...
She's normal. I'm not her boss, so she's free.
Have we demonstrated the capacity to cater for victims? Because I do know that a lot of the time, the politicians will talk on radio and on TV about all the fantastic things they are doing. When you go to the ground, what you find, it's really troubling. Not because the politicians don't want to, but because they simply lack the capacity. And they don't want us to know they lack the capacity. They will tell us nice things. Have we demonstrated the capacity to provide the protection that the victims need and to give them the assurance that they should have, that they can make life meaningful for themselves in spite of whatever predicament they suffer?
I will answer from my point of view, and I'm glad the a representative of the ministry is here to also let us know what they are also doing. As one, when it comes to violence work with abuse, one of the major things we need around is shelters, because most people are not able, when we're talking about reporting, reasons why people don't report, most people are scared of, if I go out and report, where will it end? Where am I going? I have nowhere else. I have to live here. So if I go and report whoever I'm living with or whoever is causing the harm, and we don't have enough shelters. I know if it will be in good faith, we could have at least in most districts for the police. Because at times, for example, if somebody is being beaten by the fiancé or the husband and runs to the police station, at times they are very willing to do the work. But at times that woman needs temporary shelter,
which the state hasn't provided.
The state doesn't have. So is it the police,
the state has
a male
refused
police
to have?
I don't know. Is it the male policeman on duty? The person cannot take the person home if it's a male person. So we need to make all these things. And one other thing that also is preventing people from also reporting most of the time, as he rightly said, is our cultural background. Most people think, why do I have to go and report my fiancé or boyfriend or husband? Why do I have to go and report this one, and also the go and come syndrome at the police station. I said earlier this morning that for me, I know it's not the fault of the police, because when it comes to investigation, they really have to do that. But then at times people go and they tell you, go and come, and you can even hear them say that, can you show us the perpetrator? Because at times, even for them to even go and make arrests, there are some places there might not be vehicle to even immediately go. So all these things deters people from going to report, because they think at the end of the day, what will be the solution? Or they will tell me, let's go and, try and go and settle it at home. So when you look at the UN definition for violence against women, it defines it and says that any act that is caused, be it physical, sexual, or everything, happening in the private or public sphere. It stresses about the private, because especially most abuse come through relationships. But when it's taken, let me give you an example. There's been times when, for example, if I'm walking in town and any person beats me and I walk to the police station and report, they will ask, what is he to you? I said I was walking, he called me, and they will quickly take action because they knew, you don't know, why did you beat a woman or something? But if I go and say that, for example, I don't know any Malik, I'm using a Malik. Malik beats me. And who is Malik? He's my husband, or he's my fiancé. And now, Kunusuna, you are coming to report. So the definition stress on the point for us to know that whether it happens in private or public sphere, and also for people to know that when they are living with women, they are not their property, for them to think that because I paid a dowry and married you, I have the right to do everything I want to you.
Honorable, therein lies a bigger challenge, isn't it? The persons whose mandate it is to provide you with protection and to investigate your matter, and then ensure that the perpetrators of the violence against you are prosecuted and dealt with in accordance with the law, themselves are products of a society that does not appear to have any problems with this kind of violence. And the scenario she painted is a real one. My colleague Manasseh Azure reported one case. He was in Tamale at a police station where a police officer slapped a lady who had gone to report abuses by her husband. The police officer slapped her. So what she said is real.
Well, that depicts the reality of the situation. And that also brings forward the need to get all of us moving together, because every person in that regard is very important. We've done two things. It's very true we don't have enough shelters, but at least we have social welfare officers around the whole Ghana and the districts. We have a shelter in Accra, and we have operationalized that one. But the point is, let it be a huge issue, because we want to approach it very strongly. If people are so conscientized and well, and the issue is that if there are shelters which are respond, Ghana will rise up to it. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but we should rise up to concerns. But the reality is that that issue you just said is what is happening to us. The level at which people should report is a problem to us. We want a situation where people will be so tuned to the fact that it is wrong and therefore you can't touch me.
Yeah.
If that is strongly done, we shall be happy with the next stage of the problem. But we haven't gotten that yet. You've given about 2 or so examples. And that's why we think that the activism, as we discuss and go ahead, should get people to understand the harm they are doing to society.
And talking about activism, at the risk of appearing unfair, I'm suggesting that the minister, when she was a human rights activist, when she was not in government, she was far more active, in my opinion, than she appears now, because at that time, she took on the police, she took on the state, she took on everybody who appeared to be abusing anybody's rights. Now she's part of the state, she's part of managers of the state. Is she not constrained? Because I am not seeing the strong, robust Oyelita that we knew.
Well, what really happens is that when you move seats, your approach to a resolution is always a different one. So like if you're an NGO for one where she was, you can decide to move to radio and start talking. But now you want to help in the resolution and get systems set up. And what is done through that is that the policies are all coming up very strongly. In terms of children and women, we've done and moved, and we are now amending the Children's Act. We now have the child and family welfare policy, because we realize there's a disconnect when we always rely on the children's act. So there are amendments taking place now. There's a justice for children policy, which is just almost completed. It will come out very soon. The gender policy will be launched about a week or two from now, and the social protection policy will follow. And God willing, finally, the affirmative action bill will go to cabinet by next week. So these are the policy things she's been working on very strongly. And what she does is to help in resolving. That's why I say that we are now even operationalizing a shelter at Odoko in Accra.
I think she will give you a salary raise because you just defended her well. Honorable is suggesting that you are not shouting loud enough.
Oh, did I?
Because you are a civil society organization. You are the activists. You are not shouting loud enough because Nano Yelita used to shout. We all heard her. She's now in government, so Honorable suggests she now realizes that the approach has to be different because she shifted chairs. She's left the shouting to you.
To us.
And we are not hearing you.
We are doing it.
Yes.
Because for me, if not anything, at least it was, as earlier on when you were talking about the fact that this study has been long overdue, it was through this study that we were able to get the DV Act.
Exactly.
So it's processes. But for me, speaking from an angle of an activist and working with an NGO, it's all about, we do the policies, we do them, but it's about the implementation, the enforcement. Other than that, we will get plenty of them. Because I think most of them, there were so many before I was even born. But it's about its implementation, the enforcement, the work that we are doing, creating the awareness, telling people, leaders, traditional leaders, pastors, everybody to get on board, everybody to get involved, for us to know that violence against women is wrong. And not even just women, children, and even men. But today we are talking more for women.
But I want us to, Honorable...
yeah, just the first one. You know that, look at the witches camp, for one. Witches camp, the Gambaga, the Bunyase, there are a lot of them, which was a safe heaven some time ago, but now it's a safe hell. Those times they will lynch you, so it was safe to get some place to stay. But now, economically, everything has changed. Socially, it's too bad. Now, to close a witches camp, I just explained, it takes a process. So now you can say we should close it.
How many have you closed so far?
One. And the others,
how long did it take?
It took more than a year.
Why?
Consultation. The players, who are the active players? They are the chiefs. Who are the active players? They are the community leaders. Who are the active? They are the imams. Who are the active? They are the family heads. So it takes a lot. And most importantly, to convince them to get rid of the idea that poverty or anybody who is not in that class belongs to a witchcraft class, and the fact that they have no right to declare anybody as a witch. It takes a lot of work in dissemination, trying to convince them to understand that it's wrong.
Honorable, I want us to listen to watch a small video clip of a victim who granted us an interview, a victim of domestic violence who granted us an interview so that we can put in context this discussion.
When she was 15. She's 22 years old now, and she's still battling with the effect of that incident on her life. I'm here to chat with her and find out how she intends to overcome it, because it's been 7 years already. Let me see. Ebani saying na papa ni nya wo no die.
Me mama wo ya miensa. Na me mama wu ye no jai. Ti miensa na me ba se me ba be ejuma hwe me nua no mako school.
When my mom died, life became very difficult for us and my two siblings. So I came to Accra to work to enable me help my siblings back home. When I arrived, a gentleman saw me and promised me a job. In his home, he asked me to pick some things in his room. Immediately I entered, he pounced on me and raped me. Told me not to tell anyone, but I told my siblings, and together we reported the matter to the police. I also received medical attention. The police have been on the lookout for this gentleman, but as I speak to you 7 years after, he has not been found. When they broke into his room, he had packed out. Now, my family has told me to stop thinking about the incident and just forget about it. However, it is very difficult for me, and anytime I see a man, I get scared. My wish is that one day, this man will be arrested and punished.
Yeah, welcome back. You just heard a victim narrate her ordeal to my colleague Hannah Odami. Honorable, that's a poor young lady that the society has failed. The state has failed this lady who lost her mom, came to Accra to hustle. Yeah. And a young man took advantage of her precarious situation and raped her. But the state has failed her because 7 years, the police can't find who did it. There's no justice for her. There's no closure. So she's dealing with this all alone.
Well, she claimed that the guy has bolted, and in our system, it's difficult to get him. So you cannot even say that the police have not really done their job, but they have not gotten to the end. So we all pray that the person will be arrested. I'm damn interested in what happens to that particular girl eventually. Now, if you come to our area, that's why currently, if you go to any of the DOPSU units, if you ask them, they will show you a social worker who is attached to the department. And the social worker is supposed to take care of the victim's interest, which will happen. So we have attached them to hospitals and then to all these police units, just to close the gap and make sure that we get the support for them. And then handle that, police will take care of the other one. And we are there to do that particular strong thing. So you cannot say at times there's a difficulty with our system to get people to arrest them because the person has gone away. But I think the second point is how to get them to really come together. For you in the press, we have also concerns for you because you remember recently we had to close down some of the orphanages because we also realized that it was becoming a money-making venture for some people. And then you also condoning by doing all the free adverts for them and soliciting funds for them.
But that's not fair because we covered some, Anas went to do some interviews and expose some wrongdoing there.
I'm talking about some we closed down. Now, we are doing in the social welfare system because we don't get people to just open orphanages. It's always the last resort. And what is important for us more particularly is the fact that we have something we call the social welfare, the Care Reform Initiative. Now, if anything comes under our purview, if it is reported to those who in any of those bodies, we'll take it over. And most occasions, we'll do what is called reintegration of the families. And incidentally, on most occasions, except on few occasions, we're able to locate somebody within the family who is prepared to take care of that particular person and who will claim that I'm not even aware my niece, nephew is involved in this particular cases. So what I'm saying is that let us get the reporting system well done. And the step is that the minister has attached social workers to all the DOPSU outlets to help in addressing such issues.
Esther Lamis's case may even be better. In some cases, the outcome is tragic.
Yes.
Because we reported of the incident at the UPSC, the University for Professional Studies, Accra, where a young man, a jilted boyfriend, stabbed his girlfriend to death, a third-year student of the university. The gentleman stabbed her to death and stabbed himself in the process. Tragic end to a sorry relationship.
You know, this morning when I left your station, someone said you are passionate about your work. I get passionate because for me, I still go back to the point that we can still do more and do better. This girl that we just watched has gotten to the point of the consequences or the outcome of violence. You heard her saying that when I see men, what is happening is if we don't get a psychologist for her, when some of the consequences of sexual violence is that now is either she has become very rigid, she gets traumatized to see men. Some, in the end, if care is not done, she might even say that she won't marry.
Yes.
Or some will, in the end, turn up to become prostitutes because they sit down one day and just tell themselves, after all, what is it about me? And
so they lose a sense of self-worth.
Self-worth.
Yes.
Self-worth. And talking about the person slashing somebody, you know, I believe that in my office, for the past 3 years, we've done 3 trainings for the media because we realize that we really have to work with the media for them to also know how best to report on such cases. At times, it gets very pathetic when, excuse me to say, some of the local dialect stations, when they are reporting cases on rape, I like listening to them after work. You get happy, you know, to release tension. But when it comes to these cases, the drama around the thing make it lose its seriousness.
Is that not a reflection of the society's attitude towards?
Not at all.
Not
at all.
So for us, we train the media. We've been taking them through, getting them to understand gender, human rights, violence against women and children, how they should report. All of us has to take this thing very seriously. And everyone should know. For example, when we talk about as much as society, our culture, the system is condoning it, have we ever said that, okay, for example, a leader, traditional leader condoning it, let's allow the law to take its course?
Doc, you don't, Honorable, you don't agree that the embellishments and almost comical presentation of these stories by some of our friends in the media, especially the local language stations, is a reflection of the little seriousness that the society pays to these matters?
No, when you are reading your news, society has not told you how to present it. So you cannot say that's how they want it. You should, body language is very important in all presentations. And the people will receive what you also say. So what are you also saying? Are you presenting it in the language and in a manner that will carry the message in itself? So that presentation will serve as a form of education. But if you keep it dramatized in such a manner, you lose the intent and people don't grasp the seriousness of it. So you should always portray that one in a very sober and frightening mood, because these are very frightening times. The traumatized lady, she spoke about her. So I think it's not, if you say that's what society wants, then who is going to help change the society? Always we should look for new normals and work on it. So there's a new normal to present that particular side. There are a lot more issues to present in a dramatized manner, a lot in the system. But for these cases, we should let the society receive it as it is, so that they will help in managing it. You know, emotionally, people cry when you do the right presentation.
To our own credit, Joy FM will do that a lot.
Exactly.
I mean, Joy News generally, both radio, TV, online. We do that a lot.
Yes.
We stick to the issues, and a lot of the time we
get
positive
and excite sympathy, and let them start contributing and helping the course of action. But when dramatic becomes so normal, people want to listen to the news in such a manner, and it loses a whole impact. So it is not serving the purpose. So it is not what society wants. It is how many of us will be the agents of change.
Let's hold it there. When we come back, we will talk about why we present the news in the manner in which we present it, and why the society appears not to take the fight against domestic violence seriously. You're watching PM Express. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. We are talking gender violence, violence against women and men. That's what we are discussing tonight on PM Express. Honorable, before we went on the line, and when you were giving us the figures, you were talking about the reason why the president has found it necessary to reorganize the ministry and make it gender instead of just for women and children.
Yes.
what do we know? What are the figures in terms of men also suffering abuses from women?
I will give you some few figures from DOFSU for you to appreciate. Now, from 2010 to 2014, 5,794 defilement cases, this against women and girls. 2010
to 2014, that's a period of 4 years. Yes.
1,603 rape cases, these are all the reported ones. 21,299 assault cases perpetrated against women and girls. On the other hand, only 20 defilement cases reported. 3,556 assault cases. You know, mostly the assault cases of men are on the lighter side of the assaults. And 0 rape case against men.
Okay, that is because by law, a man cannot be raped.
Oh.
Yes, that's by law. By law, a man cannot be raped because if you look at the definition of a law,
I understand.
Rape,
you consent. If it doesn't come up, you can't.
It is the law defines rape, and this is Section 1 of Sexual Offences Act 2003 says that when A penetrates B without consent, blah blah blah, that's rape. So A penetrates to the extent that you do not have a penis, you cannot rape somebody.
Yes.
And rape is penetration of any of the orifices, the 3 orifices, that's the openings.
Yes,
I can't mention all of them, but we know that there are 3 orifices, the anus, the mouth, and the vagina. These are the 3 things. So a woman cannot rape a man by law. So it is the reason you don't have reports or complaints against men complaining that they have been raped, except assault.
No, the law will not prevent somebody from complaining. He may complain, but the law will not take care of that situation because it's not acceptable.
Because,
But you may get some reported cases, but doesn't mean it will feature in the law courts. But in any case, in all such cases, defilement and other things, the figure is staggering if you compare to the 2 areas. At times, women say that we also face it. Yes, it is true, but the disparity, the difference is too huge.
In fact, some of the figures I have, because we do know that 35% of women and girls globally experience some form of physical and sexual violence in their lifetime, with up to 7 in 10 women facing this abuse in some countries. 7 in 10 women.
In some countries, yes.
That's astronomical. In fact, there is an estimated 133 million girls and women who have experienced some form of female genital mutilation, and you were mentioning the figures in the 1998 research that was done. Worldwide, more than 700 million women alive today were married as children. 700 million.
Yes.
250 million of whom were married before the age of 15. These are the figures that
the seriousness of it. But in fact, if we should talk about the repercussions of early or forced marriage, then you have a feel of what people really go through. Now, if you become a social outcast, your colleagues don't want you to come near because you now bear a child. So when they are even playing, they don't want you to come. The other serious part is that because of the age difference, you become a widow at a tender age. And nobody wants to marry you in those communities. The other point is that because of your situation and because you were not grown enough, you don't have any economic empowerment. You cannot do any work.
Honorable, let's take, I have on the line Madame Henrietta Amoah. She is unfortunately a victim of domestic violence. Madame Henrietta, you are welcome to PM Express.
Okay, hello, good evening.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us in this discussion. And let me warn viewers that we'll be showing Madame Henrietta's video. Viewer discretion is advised because one of her images is really difficult to see. She must have gone through a very difficult time in the hands of somebody that she once loved. Madame Henrietta, you are on PM Express. Briefly tell us exactly what happened to you and how long ago this was.
Okay, good evening once again. My incident happened on the 2nd April, that's 2015, whilst I was taking my bath, while my guy poured the acid on me. So I had some deforming on my head and my face. So it's not easy at all if you go through such a painful distance. It's not easy because I wasn't expecting that thing at the moment. So
were you having a disagreement with him?
Yes, but not to that extent was I expecting of acid. I didn't even think of that, neither to dream about acid. I used to eat acid, but I didn't know that it's a painful thing that people go through.
How long were you in a relationship with him?
Okay, less than 3 years.
You were in a relationship for less than 3 years?
Yes.
Was there a discussion of marriage between the two of you?
Yes, we were about to.
And then one day, whilst you were taking your bath, he poured acid on you?
Yes, due to the help of 1 or 2 people around the area.
So he had help to do this to you?
Yes, because he didn't pass through the main gate. He jumped through a wall. Where I'm living, one of your colleagues know where I'm living right now. So she came here, so she knows the area.
So you locked your home, so he couldn't have had access to your home?
No, I didn't lock my home. Where I'm living in front of the roadside. But he didn't pass through that. He went through the next house to pass there and jumped through the wall. So he didn't come through the main entrance. So I didn't see that there was anybody that is coming to do me any harm at that moment.
Has he been arrested by the police?
No.
So he hasn't been found at all?
No.
Have you heard from him since this incident happened?
No, I have not.
He has never showed up anywhere or sent you any, does he send you any help?
No. Neither the family or the guy himself, no.
So not even his family hasn't made any attempt at all to reach out to you?
No.
Was his family against your relationship?
No, they didn't show me any type of against that they are not willing to accept the marriage. They didn't. Because what I can remember that the sister came to me 2 weeks before the incident. So I wasn't expecting anything of that sort.
How has life been since this difficult incident?
Life has been horrible. It's not easy because it changes your lifestyle, everything that you do. It's not easy. If you don't take time, you will think like committing suicide. If you don't have people around you who love you, it's not easy. You'll be thinking about it, and even the things that you'll be going through and the trauma, you even die. It's not an easy thing.
Madam Herinta Amo, we will have this conversation again, but today we have run out of time. I believe that in the coming days, we will pick up this conversation with you again. Thank you for joining us on tonight's PM Express. Good night. You saw the picture, or the picture wasn't shown? Yes. It wasn't shown. You've heard her. She was in a relationship with somebody 3 years. They were planning marriage. One day she was bathing acid on her. She hasn't heard from him. No member of his family has reached out to her. The police haven't arrested him, and she's left. And she's completely scarred.
I just don't know what to say, because as you were asking the questions, they were going to get married. Nobody knew whether she had told him they should break up, because normally it happens when the ladies tell them they should break up. But what your cherished viewers should know is that nobody has the right to try to end somebody's life. And when it comes to such cases, I strongly believe if they are really bold, why do they run away? Why do they do and run away? And it gets very difficult for us to get them, especially in our part here. for
Honorable,
me.
in 30 seconds, for someone like that, what can be done for her? What should have been done for her?
Normally,
in 30 seconds.
Yes, what we do is that when you are in such a situation, the social welfare will do what is called a social inquiry report, because we are interested in all the questions you were actually asking. In actual fact, that element did not really come, because those things may form a form of a developing case we need to attract. That will be the first one. The next one will indicate what she needs. Maybe she needs a clinical psychologist to work on her to a particular level. Then you look at the economic empowerment, what level of it, what the relationship, and what can be done to support it. So it takes a process to go through and present a nice report to see which interventions should come immediately.
Honorable, that's where we will leave it. Honorable John Alexander Akun is the Deputy Minister for Women, Children, and Gender Protection. We're also honored to have Mrs. Esther Darko-Mensah. She is also a gender and human women rights activist. Tonight on PM Express, we have been talking gender violence, and my guests have brought enlightenment to the discussions. My name is Malik Abbas Dabu. God willing, tomorrow we will bring you another discussion, a sizzling discussion on PM Express. Good night.